In an all-timer from the Do As I Say, Not As I Do file today, Congressman Joe Wilson is asking for a dialing down of the rhetoric in the debate over health care reform. In our number 2 story, Nancy Pelosi made a similar request yesterday, except the House Speaker's belief that crazy talk could lead to violence has led to more crazy talk from where else? Fox News and Rush Limbaugh. Beginning with Mr. Wilson, who has barely stopped talking since his "you lie" interruption of the president last week. Today he tells Capitol Hill newspaper Roll Call, quote, "I do believe people should be temperate in their remarks and non-condemning." On the raucous town hall crowds, these, quote, "these are dear people at town halls and tea parties. They're loving people." And he tries to explain away the hateful imagery on the signs at some of the anti-reform crowd. People should know the people with the Hitler signs were Democrats. They're with the LaRouche campaign, a reference to former Labor Party presidential candidate Lyndon LaRouche, who has had nothing to do with the Democratic Party and, in fact, despises it. At a press conference yesterday, the House Speaker called for a stop of the inflammatory rhetoric surrounding the health care debate, fearing a similar result that befell San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and city supervisor and gay rights activist Harvey Milk, who were assassinated in 1978. Fox News says it is Pelosi's remarks, not the angry rhetoric she is condemning, that is sowing the seeds of assassination.
When you raise it in this fashion, when you hearken to terrible tragedies involving political assassination,
giving people ideas,
and it's a horrible thing to do.
And if that logic isn't tortured enough, enter Rush Limbaugh.
They're setting the table now so they can point fingers of blame. She's out there, she's just playing a strategic game here. I wouldn't put it past Pelosi to want to be trying to create some violence with this.
Setting the table, indeed. Joining me now to sift through the debris of the right-wing thinking on this one is MSNBC analyst and CQPolitics.com's Craig Crawford. Craig, welcome. Thanks for joining us on this one.
Hi. I did my extra duty sifter for this one, I think.
You did. You had to do a lot of homework on this one because I know you don't think this way yourself. So I'm trying to follow what the Fox and Friends crew is up to here. They're saying that if the crazy off-the-wall rhetoric at the anti-health reform rallies and all of that, some of it verging on the violent, is that won't cause anyone to tend toward violence. But Nancy Pelosi preaching against violence, that will definitely provoke violence. That's the Fox and Friends notion of how this works?
And where was the outrage about some of those who talked fairly violently on their side of the fence? How about the guy who brought the gun to an event? Where was the outrage about that from this side? Absolutely. There's no way the Fox folks think their crowd is going to follow Pelosi over anything. I think disingenuous is the word for that.
Now, Glenn Beck seems to maybe have feelings not that dissimilar from Nancy Pelosi, because earlier this summer he pleaded with his followers to be vigilant and to be angry, but he specifically pleaded with his followers not to be violent. He didn't want another Timothy McVeigh scenario. So he seems to know something about his audience, doesn't he, when he's warning them not to be violent?
If I could be extra cynical, what if the thinking here is if something does happen down the road, they've created cover, that it's Pelosi's fault, and if something did happen, that is at least a consequence of what they're doing, if not the purpose.
Craig, there aren't a lot of us in this country who have any idea who Lyndon LaRouche is or where he stands or where he has stood on our political spectrum. I find it a little bit indescribable and challenging to try to explain Lyndon LaRouche to anyone. But would you call him a good and faithful Democrat?
Not at all, considering that not too long ago he told a crowd of supporters that under Obama their sisters would be carted off to ovens. I don't think that is a supporter of at least the president, certainly not the Democratic Party. I haven't understood LaRouche since about 15 years ago when his people threw some sort of wine on my suit And in those days, media companies had more money. I got the budget to get dry cleaning. But here's how I explain LaRouche, Lawrence, his movement is nativist revolutionaries. Revolutionaries in the sense that they really want to be the second coming of the founding fathers, and they have to have something to revolt against. They want to run out that experience that the revolutionaries had against the British occupiers. Nativist in the sense that it's ethnic and even racial chauvinism, in the sense that white Europeans don't run the country anymore. This is why we hear all this, we want our country back. There are people who just can't accept that that's what's happening.
So in Joe Wilson's mounting of his defense, he blames some of these things on Lyndon LaRouche, who he says is a Democrat, which is completely untrue. He continues to bumble along here. Is he keeping him in the Congress, is that an asset to the Democrats to keep a clown like that around to represent the Republican Party?
It might even be an asset for Republicans, some Republicans, because it's the people like him and Michelle Bachmann and others and Sarah Palin who are going to keep the faithful energized. But I think it's going to keep the Republican Party a minority party, just a very loud one. And if anything, standing on a postage stamp of whatever their principles are. And in the end, yes, I think it's better for Democrats, even though I think some Republicans see this as an advantage.
Craig Crawford of CQ Politics and MSNBC, thanks for your time tonight.
Good to be here.